Hi everybody, welcome to Missy's Imaginings. Thank you for coming by today, and thank you for all the kind notes both here and on Facebook and on the website. It's been an interesting couple weeks, and I was very thankful to have some time off and to rest. And so yeah, it was one of those times when somebody's having some health issues and there was a funeral to go to, and then there was another funeral that I couldn't attend because it was far away, and it was just a lot compounded. And so thank you so much for all your kindness and for the well wishes. I really appreciate that, for all the prayers, and it's very much appreciated. But the Lord is good, and He takes good care of me. So yeah, so we're doing good. Sometimes you just need to take that step back and breathe and rest, and that was very refreshing to be able to do that. So I'm back to dolly stuff. So today what I wanted to look at was an idea. I know sometimes if you want to design an outfit, it's hard to know, if you're beginning, where to start. Where do you start? And of course, one of the easiest ways is to go down to one of the links below and check out my basic sets on the website. And so those basic sets are pattern sets. They're all free, and they are drafted directly from the body of the given doll. So it'll say what kind of doll it is and what the basic set is. And those are simply pattern pieces that have been directly wrapped on the doll and then transposed onto paper for you, so you can use those to design whatever it is you want to make. And those, of course, if you were to sew them, first of all, use stretchy fabric so you can get them on and off, because all you're going to end up with is a very tight-fitting bodysuit. But they are specifically designed so that you can make your own patterns and then have the pieces fit. So you can use those. Also, you can use those pattern pieces in tandem with something else that we're going to do today. Another note on my free patterns, in case you're new and you're just now coming to the videos, then welcome, thanks for coming. If you go to my website and look on the menu, there's one tab called Free Stuff. And if you look at the Free Stuff page, you will see JPEG images of all the pattern sets and what pieces are in that particular set. So you can look through them and see what you are going to get. Then once you decide what you'd like, if you go through the menu and go to the Ready to Print page, all those patterns are available in PDF format. And so you can click on whichever one you want. It will open in PDF file, and you can print it or save it as a file on your computer, whatever you'd like to do. If it's in the US, the pattern paper sizes are either going to be our standard letter size, which is 8.5 inches by 11 inches, or some, I think, are still legal size paper, which is 8.5 by 14 size. And you'll know the difference. The 8.5 by 11 will be about like this, and then the legal size will be the longer size. So you just have to look ahead of time on what size of paper it's going to use. I don't know how my patterns transpose over to A4 paper. I don't know. I don't have those measurements, so I don't know. I've had a couple people ask me, in my recommendation, if you have A4 paper, is to go to your printer options or properties and select actual size. And that way it should print exactly what I have saved as the PDF file, regardless of what your paper size is. I don't know if that's helpful. I hope so. But in any event, there's free patterns there. Some are actual clothing patterns, but there's a lot of basic sets. So what you can do is print out a basic set for your particular doll, or one that's close, and use that in tandem with what we're going to do today, and that is to use a people pattern. And so in using a people pattern, there's a few different ways you can go about making it into a doll pattern. So the first way, and the easiest way, though it is time consuming, is to use a Xerox machine. So I saved the photo of the image of what the dress will look like, and I simply enlarged the pattern from, here I'll get this out, the instruction page that comes with the pattern. So if you look in the pattern, unfortunately this pattern has very large images, so it didn't take as much effort to actually enlarge the pieces, but you can use a Xerox machine and enlarge it to whatever percentage you need it enlarged, and there you have a pattern set. So that's one of the easiest ways. It does, however, I don't know if you can tell, maybe if I turn this light on behind it, if you can tell I've had tape here and a layer here, because when you're trying to enlarge this, especially if your copier only takes 8.5 by 11 paper, you know, or something that's 8.5 inches wide, by the time you enlarge it to the right size, obviously this isn't going to fit on an 8.5 by 11 paper, so you're constantly moving this image, or if you enlarge this, you know, 100%, then you have to enlarge it again, and then you have to enlarge it again to finally get where you want to be. So it's time consuming, it uses a lot of paper, but your images are going to be exact. So that's one way to do it. So there we go. You can take that option, and then you'll have a pattern. So that's one way you can do it. The other option is to use an old tried and true grade school trick that we did when we were kids, and you may remember this, is you would have an image that would be small, and on that image there would be a graph, and down the side it would be A, B, C, D, E, and across the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you'd have a larger piece of paper with a larger graph with A, B, C, D, and 1, 2, 3, and whatever was in the first little square you transposed to this square. So it was just a couple little lines that you're going to move to a bigger square, and you would do that with every single square, and then when you're done you would have an enlarged image of whatever you started. So that's what I would use to make this bigger without having to use a copy machine. So now comes the question of how much bigger are we going to make this pattern. That's where the basic sets can come in handy, because they're already sized to your doll of choice. And so for instance, if I was going to do something for my sweet little Obitsu doll here, I have a basic set done for her. I think I do. Do I have the set done for you? I don't know. Anyway, I don't remember. You'd think that I would get these things prepared. But you can also use the doll. So you can measure the difference in the pattern that you're wanting to enlarge and the actual pattern piece that is designed for the doll. So for instance, if I measure her pattern piece, I'm going to measure and see what the distance is of her arm for her sleeve and compare it with what I have on this little pattern to see how many times I might need to enlarge it. Now, when you're enlarging something, there's a lot of geometry you can do, but I'm sure none of you really want to come for a geometry lesson. So there's a couple different methods. The first one, if you're in the US and you really are comfortable with using inches, the English system, you can buy what's called an architect scale. Now there's a couple of these rulers that you can buy. The other, I believe, is an engineer scale. I'm not entirely sure because I didn't want to buy that one. You want to buy the architect scale. The reason being is these have 6 different, well, let's see, 6 different options for enlarging or reducing. And the basic premise here would be inches. So that's called a 16 scale, and it's regular inches. Then on all the other edges are going to be proportions to an inch. So for instance, this is a 3/16 scale. Here's a 3/32 scale. You've got a 3-inch scale that would enlarge. So if you've got a whole number here, you're going to get bigger. If you have a fractional number, you're going to get smaller. So for instance, here's a 3/8 scale. So that means for every one of these little marks from 0 to 1, that is 3/8 of an inch, but that would represent 1 inch when you're reducing. However, if you want to make something bigger, you would use your 3" or 3 scale, because here from 0 to 1 is one measurement, which would equal 3 inches. So you've enlarged it 3 times. So it's a good tool to use in reducing and enlarging. The other option, of course, if you like centimeters, you can use just a centimeter scale, because that is a little bit easier because it's a base 10 scale. It's just, decimal numbers. It's a lot easier to work with. So if I'm going to measure across my little pattern piece here on the skirt, it's 15 centimeters. So if I know I want to make this, 3 times bigger, I would just measure 15 and multiply it by 3. So you just multiply or divide. It's just a little bit easier because you're just working with a 10 base 10 scale, and you don't have to worry about all the 1/4 inches and 3/8 inches and 1/16 inches that you have to convert. Hope that makes sense. So anyway, so if I look here at her little sleeve, on the pattern that I want to enlarge, it's 4.5 centimeters. So if I look at her arm, and I see that her arm is at 16, oh, well, let's see, that means I'm going to enlarge it by at least 3 times, maybe 4. So I could multiply 4.5 by 4 and get 16, and then that 1/2 inch. I'd have to do the math. I can't do it in my head. But I just multiply it by 4 to get my measurements. So when I make my graph for every centimeter that is on this page, then I'm going to have 4 centimeters on my big graph, and I would enlarge it. So that's kind of the tools you can use, and an idea if you don't want to use just a copy machine. So I will switch up the camera, and we will put down the big paper. I have my big paper here somewhere. There it is. And we'll go ahead and get started to enlarge this pattern. Oh, before we do that, I'm just making mention very quickly that if you're doing this for the first time and you're not real sure how it's going to work, I would suggest picking a pattern similar to this, that it's very flouncy, it has lots of room for adjustment, it's not a very fitted, tailored pattern. So that way you can get used to the process, get used to sewing, get used to maybe the little differences in techniques from people clothes to doll clothes. So you can kind of get used to it with something that can be a little off and will still fit and work before you start getting patterns that would be very, very tailored and very exact fit. Because remember, these are people patterns, so they're not made to fit doll bodies necessarily. They're designed for people bodies, and not my body at that, more like a model's body. But anyway, you might have some tweaking, and that's where comparing your enlarged pieces with the basic set pieces will let you see, okay, is this waist going to be comparable to what this doll's waist really should look like? You can compare it to those basic sets and use those kind of as just a little touchstone to keep your measurements where they need to be. So in combination with trying something that's loose fitting, that has room for error, to get used to it and make a couple things, and then go ahead and the sky's the limit. Patterns, you can find them in so many places, at secondhand stores and thrift stores, garage sales, yard sales, estate sales. Online you can get old patterns really cheap on eBay and Amazon. So it's kind of an easy way to go about finding something that you might like if you can't find that item for your doll. So if you want a really, really tailored suit, then, well, by all means, you could go and look up some old Simplicity patterns and then snag the little instructions out and make a pattern for your doll. So depending on what you like. It just gives you a whole new world of resources to create your patterns. So that's what we'll do today. We'll go ahead and enlarge this, and I'm not even sure when I copied this what size I enlarged it to. I think I enlarged this to fit a Tonner Tyler, I think. I don't know. I don't remember. It just says real clothing to Tonner. So my guess is Tyler, because at the time I think that's all. I think that's the only doll I was sewing for. I don't know. But I am going to enlarge it for, let's see, who's the lucky doll? Do you want to be the lucky doll? Maybe I'll go ahead and do it for her. She looks like she needs a new outfit, right? Been standing there in those shorts a long time. So we'll switch up the camera and go ahead and get to work. I'm going to go ahead and use centimeters, just because that's kind of a very basic way to enlarge things. And I'm going to make my graph actually 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters, just because I'm comfortable with that measurement, and then I won't have such tiny boxes on my pattern. For my Abitsu, I'm going to enlarge this pattern about 4 times. So each of these squares is 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters. So these will be larger, obviously. So they will be 8 centimeters by 8 centimeters. So it looks like my paper wasn't quite big enough, so we're just going to see if I can make this work. I may have to switch some pieces up a little bit, but we're going to use the basic idea that for the skirt I'm going to use these measurements, and I'll fit it down in this corner. So let's see here. I can make it a little darker so you can see which lines I'm using. So we might have to reposition some of my pieces just so we can get them to fit. Okay, so we're going to do one, let's see, A, B, C, D, E. We're not going to use those. And we'll use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've got A, B, C, D, E, and then 8. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hopefully we'll have enough. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So for the skirt pattern, here we go. so here's all my pieces. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's see, what is number 10? I don't see a piece number 10. Oh, 10. Let's see, 11 I'm not using, 12. And then it looks like for the skirt view I'm going to need another piece that, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can use this length over here that will be the skirt ruffle. Okay, I almost missed a piece. So we'll add the skirt ruffle here. Okay. And that's 13, which is the skirt ruffle. So there you have it. There's how to draft a pattern from a people pattern. So there we go. And let's see, I can't call this by name because I don't know how old this pattern is, and I might not be able to do that, but I could go ahead and put these and the ones I photocopied maybe on the website as we'll call it the ruffle skirt or ruffle dress. There we go. And so we'll call this 1/3 scale, and the other one we'll call 4th scale. So I'll kind of divide these up so that they're available for you. And yeah, so there we go. There's the pieces and how it would draft together. And now you can have fun making a pattern that you love to make. So enjoy, and I'll see you next time.